Hi there and welcome to my series on website design and development. My name is Rian and I'll be instructor. Okay, so you've seen all your friends have cool websites and they're making money off them and you want to join the crew. So how would you go about it? Surely you can pay someone a lot of money to do your website, but a lot of people don't really know how easy it is to actually just take a little bit of time and just design your own site. A lot of people feel intimidated. I know a couple of my friends and colleagues at work, they always say like, yo, website development, I just don't have the time to learn it. But you can pick it up in 2, 3 months easily if you understand what you're doing. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a website with a basic structure. We're going to be linking a style sheet. I'm going to be explaining the code as we go along. But please bear with me. I assume that if you want to start website development, you have some fundamental understanding of how computers work. And if not, I suggest you first check out how your computer works and just Google a bit. You'll find a lot of information on the internet available to you. And then take a little bit of time, like over weekends, and start doing it. Okay, so what we're going to do is most websites, when you upload into a server, run out of a directory, whether it be like on a, let's say, a IIS server, which is a Microsoft server, usually a Plex or something like that. You'll have a directory called htdocs, and within htdocs, you will place all your files, which will be your FTP server, which you upload to. And from there, which the web server will then point it to your index file, and that will be a website. If you have Linux hosting with Apache and stuff like that, you'll have a public underscore HTML file where everything will run. But for the interest of this video, we're just going to create a file, a folder called www. That will be our root document where we're going to be creating all our files. Once inside there, I want you to create basic one folder named CSS, and we'll name this CSS is abbreviation for cascading style sheet. Now, a style sheet is there's a couple of ways of using them. You'll have inline styling, which you'll add to the code physically, or you can have a style attribute in the heading section of your website where you can define all the styles for the content that follows in the body, or you can use external style sheets. I prefer to use external style sheets because it keeps your code neat and clean and everything's in place and it's easy to edit. Alright, so once you've created your CSS folder, I want you to basically just create a new text document. You can just right click and say new text document and you'll see it gives you with the extension. I'm using Windows 8.1, yours might be configured differently, but just make sure that the document is named index.html. Okay, wonderful. Let's just accept that. Okay, once we have the index.html file made, you'll see that it says here under the tab that it's an HTML document, which is good. That's the internet document. This is what we'll be using. So open this with your text editor. I'm using Sublime Text because it gives you nice code highlighting and syntax suggestions, IntelliSense, and all that. You could be using any IDE of your choice. You could use Notepad for all that I care really. It's just you need something that you can type plain text into code. Alright, so let's jump away. A website basically consists, the first line of every website has to be a doc type specifier. Now a doc type specifier just basically tells the parser that this is an HTML document. You'll see that the HTML we've written here is in lowercase. That is the HTML5 standard for creating an HTML5 page. And following your opening tag there, you'll open your HTML document. Now, anything that follows after this tag will be interpreted as HTML. Now, for every opening tag, you always have to write a closing tag. So in this case, we'll just give it a bit of space. Let's just make it 15 lines, and then we'll close the tag. You'll see now that you've got your opening HTML tag and your closing HTML tag. So anything within this will be interpreted as HTML. Next, we specify the heading section of your website. Let's just go down to 6 and just close that. Okay, now within your heading section, we're going to add 2 lines of code. The first line is obviously going to be the title. Now, the title is your basic website title. When you land on a web page, you'll see on the tab bar at the top that it gives like a company, let's say, for instance, Ventec Computers, welcome, something like that. So we're just going to name this my site, and then we'll just put a hyphen and say welcome. So you obviously close your title tag. So what this does is basically gives your site a title. Afterwards, we're gonna link a style sheet that we'll create now. So how would you go about linking it? Now, there's many different ways, but we're gonna be trying to do this as search engine friendly as possible. So how would you link a style sheet to this page? You would go link, and then you would explain the relationship of the link. And you would say relationship equals, and you're going to type style sheet, okay? And we're going to specify that the type of style sheet we'll be using is going to be text, because we'll be typing in text, and we're just going to put it as a CSS doc. Sorry about that. And finally, we're going to give it the hyperlink reference as to where it's located. And in this case, when we go back to our folder, you'll see that this is the root. In other words, this is where the HTML document is located. Now, the CSS, as we're coding here, will be located in CSS. That would be the folder name. And then the file that we're going to use is going to be called global.css. All right, now just let's... Okay, so basically this will link the style sheet that we're going to create now to this document. So go into your CSS folder and just right click there and say new text document, and we'll call this global.css. Fantastic. Okay, so you can open this in your text editor as well, because we're working this. Okay, so basically just to show you how a style sheet works, if you had to say like the entire body of the website, you would type body. You'll see, I'll explain to you what classes and what IDs are, but for now just bear with me. Okay, so body, let's say we want a background color to be, let's say we'll give it a color of Dodger blue. All right, so then we would say background color, because that's what we want to change. We put a colon, and then we would say we want it to be Dodger blue. Now, this is a CSS3 style declaration because of the use of the color name instead of the hash code, which you can find out what the hash codes are by typing in CSS3 color names into Google, and it will give you the name as well as the hash reference and the RGB values. Okay, so to test this, I want to show you, if we go into our folder and let's just open our website document, you'll notice that after we define that, the entire background of the site will be that color. So for now, we're just going to leave it at that. So you can also notice at the top there that it says my site welcome, where we defined in the index file, you can see the title there. So now you can see how things are starting to play together. Okay, the next tag after your head, we're just going to concentrate on that for the header for now. Afterwards, you'll open a body tag. Now, the body is basically where all the rest of your code will go in. Okay, so looking at the code that we currently have over here, this is a basic structure of an HTML5 document. Now, from here, you're going to specify basically that you specified with the style sheet that body should be this color. Okay, great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add a container that's going to wrap all the site content on the inside. So let's specify that as a div. Now a div is basically like a division. You can see it as a container or a matchbox. See it as a matchbox. And for this, we'll just give it an identifier, and we'll call it, let's say, wrapper. Okay. So now we've got this wrapper, and you'll see that the div tag is closed as well. Okay, so this wrapper will basically encompass everything that the site's going to hold. So let's go back to our style sheet, and then we'll create an ID. Now ID is always denoted with a hash. So let's type hash wrapper. You'll see that with Sublime Text it automatically changes the color because it's now identifier. And we'll open an open brace and a open curly brace and a closing, and then we'll specify that the left and right. Okay, so if you look at a box model, let's take for argument's sake this model that we have here. This would be your website contained. Okay, so the inside of this box would be padding, right? And on the outside you'll have a margin. So in normal layout design and also within document design, you'll always have a gutter, a margin, and padding and all that. Okay, so what we want to specify is that we want this container to have, let's say, a width. We're just going to work with width here, and we'll give it, let's say we want to make it 1024 pixels. Okay, and you just close that. Now this is the syntax and how you would write it. And then once we have, this is now the width of the wrapper. Okay, so it can't exceed that. Anything that will overflow it will not display correctly or anything as such. Also, we want this container to be centered on the page at all times. How we would achieve this is you would write margin, and your first value will always be the top value. So there will be 4 values that you can write, and this is just the optimized way of writing it. So your first value at the top would be, we don't want any margin at the top, so it would be 0. And then your left margin, we want it to be auto, and then you have your bottom, which we don't want anything, we set it 0, and then your right, we also want that to be auto. So what this does is this centers the wrapper on the page, and we'll display it now. So let's give this a height of, let's say, 768 pixels. Okay, and that would be a standard desktop resolution for if you have no display drivers installed, but we're just going to work with this. Okay, and then also we want this wrapper's background color to be white. Now you can either type white, or you can just specify the hash value, which we'll do in this case, to be white. Fantastic. So now if we go back to our code, you'll see that this division ID is a wrapper, correct? And we just defined how this wrapper should be displayed on the screen. So if you go back to your website and you refresh the page, you'll see that we now have a wrapper that's centered on the page. And if you resize the page, let's just resize it. If you make it smaller, you'll see that it moves with the window. Okay, so now we've got this wrap on the inside, but you'll notice that we have a little bit, it looks like a 10 pixel width at the top and at the bottom. So to zero this out, what we'll do is we'll apply a 0 margin and padding to the entire site. So what we'll do is you denote everything like a wildcard entry with a star. In most programming languages, star always represents everything. And inside of this tag, we'll put that the margin of the page should always be 0, as well as the padding. Now you'll see that this, once we refresh the page, you'll see that that 10 pixel disappears. In other words, it zeroes out. Now you're in complete control of what the web page will look like. Okay, so for now, that's the first video. We're going to stop there so you can play around with that and first understand what's going on. Next video, we'll add the header section, and then we'll add a nav bar and a footer section, all done with HTML markup. So let me know what you think of the first video. Give me some suggestions, and hope to see you next time. Thank you very much.